Andor may focus on the rebellion's unsung hero, but this galaxy might not be as far, far away from the Star Wars mainstream as fans expect. In the very first episode of Andor, viewers see flashbacks to Cassian's childhood on Kenari, his home planet. The clips show him donning combat gear and weapons to investigate a crashed ship with the other inhabitants of his village, a mission that ultimately proves life-changing, and not necessarily in the best way. It's interesting to see such a young version of Cassian running around with a spear in his hand, but if you've seen Rogue One, you may have been expecting it. In the movie, Cassian tells Jyn Erso about his long history as a freedom fighter.
I've been in this fight since I was 6 years old.
It emphasizes just how much of his life has been spent either on the run or in direct conflict with the powers that be. While the ship he's investigating isn't Imperial, Andor does make good on Cassian's claim of being a part of the good fight from a very young age. Though the Star Wars franchise has featured a ton of different starships over the decades, some have been iconic enough to stand out anywhere, even in a random shipyard on Ferrix, where Cassian is currently living. Near the end of Andor Season 1's opening episode, Cassian rummages around in an old junker that he borrowed from one of the yard's employees. He plays it cool, but he's actually scrubbing incriminating info from the ship's records. During a couple of exterior shots of the ship, viewers may recognize a few of the other ships occupying the yard. One is unmistakably a Y-Wing starfighter, a bomber commonly used by the Rebel Alliance, and first seen during the run on the original Death Star. The faded yellow cockpit of the ship can be seen clearly, complete with the iconic rotating turret. Y-Wings were first used by the Republic during the Clone Wars, so it makes sense to see a stray one junking it up on a planet like Ferrix. The scene also shows what looks like a variant of the T-47 airspeeder from The Empire Strikes Back. Originally manufactured as stunt fighters, T-47s were modified for various purposes by rebels throughout the Galactic Civil War. They became known as snowspeeders among the rebels. The ship seen opposite the Y-Wing in the Andor shipyard isn't a snowspeeder. It's much longer in the back than a normal T-47, but the cockpit and the wing design are quite evocative. One of the most distinct aspects of the Star Wars universe is its retro sci-fi tech aesthetic. When the first film was released in 1977, computers used vector graphics. As the franchise continued and real-world technology evolved, Star Wars played with different variants on its original in-universe technology, like how the prequels employed more holographic screens instead of vectors. Andor makes it clear from the get-go that its inspiration comes fully from the original, old-school tech of the first Star Wars films. From the numerous computer screens filled with hard lines to the digital readouts on Luthen Rael's binoculars, the show fully embraces the retro-futuristic look. It's similar in many ways to the aesthetic of The Mandalorian, but with an early Imperial-era twist. If you keep your eyes peeled throughout Andor Season 1, you'll catch a lot of little gadgets and gizmos that have appeared in previous Star Wars stories. In Cassian's flashbacks to the ship crash on his homeworld of Kenari, we see how he came to be raised by Marva Andor and taken far away into the galaxy. It all centers around the shipwreck itself, which Cassian investigates with a party from his village. Things go sour when some of the passengers turn out to be both alive and hostile, leading to a violent confrontation. Who are these interlopers, and where were they headed? It's not entirely clear, but the familiar logo on their uniforms gives some indication. On the sleeves of their spacesuits, you can make out the segmented blue and white hexagon that was the symbol of the Separatist alliance during the Clone Wars. There are no battle droids to be seen aboard the ship, but die-hard fans will know that plenty of non-robotic beings gave their lives to the Separatist cause as well. This also might explain why the wounded crewman immediately gets violent after waking up. The ship may have been coming directly from a war zone, though of course, that's no justification for his actions. When the corporate security agents come to Ferrix to hunt Cassian in Episode 3, they come prepared. Not only do they gear up with some major firepower, but they drop down to the planet's surface in ships that are strikingly reminiscent of the Republic gunships used in the Clone Wars. The iconic design was first seen in Attack of the Clones, and it has remained a staple of Star Wars ever since. While there are certainly differences between the old gunships and the landing craft seen in Andor, their striking similarities are interesting, to say the least. In the wake of the Clone Wars, the Empire phases out a lot of the gear used by the clone army. Old starfighters become TIE fighters, ATTEs become AT-ATs, and the old clone gunships are nowhere to be found. It would make sense for a private military company like the one seen in Andor to purchase some of this surplus tech for its own purposes, perhaps even making some modifications along the way. That could explain the ship design in Episode 3. Or maybe the same manufacturer simply built some new models after the war. During their first meeting in Andor Episode 3, Luthen Rael asks how Cassian managed to steal the untraceable Imperial tech he's bartering off.
You just walk in like you belong? To steal from the Empire? What do you need? A uniform, some dirty hands, and an Imperial toolkit.
His explanation can be taken as a nod to the many times rebels have successfully infiltrated Imperial strongholds using basic disguises throughout the franchise. It's a long and storied trope worthy of the reference. Whether it's Han and Luke disguising themselves as stormtroopers on the Death Star, or Obi-Wan Kenobi sneaking around the Imperial Inquisitor's citadel escorted by a double agent. Many characters have walked right past the Empire's defenses with little more than courage and a cool hat. Cassian himself uses this exact tactic at the end of Rogue One, when he and Jyn Erso break into the Imperial base on Scarif to steal the Death Star plans. As such, his line about borrowing uniforms can also be taken as a grim foreshadowing of his eventual demise. At the end of Andor Episode 3, we're treated to a beautifully shot sequence that parallels Cassian's departure from Kenari as a young boy, with his escape from Ferrix with Luthen Rael. It's a powerful and haunting moment, showing the character's talent for making it out by the skin of his teeth. The scene is tragic, not only because it emphasizes how Cassian must repeatedly leave things behind, but because it foreshadows the one time he finally doesn't make it out. Most people who watch Andor will already know Cassian's ultimate fate. It's particularly affecting then to see that earlier in his life, Cassian was known for narrow getaways. So many different times he almost meets his end, only to narrowly escape. His wits take him far in his struggle against totalitarianism, but even Cassian Andor's luck must eventually run out.